Hey guys, good afternoon. Good Monday afternoon. Before we get to any of the stuff that's related to NFL free agency and everything else, I want to say RIP to the great Craig Wolfley. Anybody who has been blessed enough to have met him knows what I'm talking about. It's impossible to say that you're somebody who's a friend to Wolfley because everyone was. This was someone who was not about handshakes, but was about hugs. And between losing him and his best bud Tunch in such short order, it's a tough one to take. And I just don't want anybody to think as we're starting to show that we're not thinking about Wolf. We're thinking about Wolf. We're thinking about his family and everything that happened here, and it happened very quickly. Anyway, this was only just a couple hours ago, finding out about this, flying back from Minneapolis, where I was covering hockey over the weekend. Obviously an eventful couple of days, to say the least, for the franchise. Trading for and then signing DK Metcalf, and then today not having a quarterback for him. I'm going to have a difficult time getting real definitive about the Justin Fields situation because there's so much we don't know. What we do know is that he's agreed to terms with the Jets for 2 years, $40 million, 30, of that guaranteed. That's a price in isolation. I'm comfortable saying this much, that I feel that the Steelers could have and should have paid. You can argue until you're purple in the face that, that's more than he should have gotten. That's too much. That's not a fair value. Not how this works. Not how this works. It's not about sitting there and assigning dollar figures. This isn't The Price is Right. This is about the existing landscape for quarterbacks, potentially starting quarterbacks in the NFL, and about paying whatever it takes to make sure that you've got one of those, that you're not left without a chair when it comes time to sit down. All by itself, without knowing details, like, for example, did Fields or his representative, David Mulugeta, offer the Steelers a chance to match? Don't know that yet. That's a pretty big one right there. If they felt, for whatever reason, obligated to the Jets because the Jets were the ones who really stepped up and the Jets are the ones who said, here's the opportunity, we're not going to go back to the Steelers to give them a chance to either match or exceed it. That's a little bit of a different scenario for the Steelers' perspective. But, as we're talking right now, the Steelers don't have a quarterback. They got Metcalf, and they don't have a quarterback. And when we come back here, we're going to be joined by Chris Halleck to talk some more about this, obviously.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Yeah, so the Steelers, as Kiefer puts it here, left our pathetic team to go to the Jets. And if it wasn't specifically the Jets, Chris Halleck, I don't think it would rub people necessarily as much the wrong way, but it is. And that was where Le'Veon Bell went to watch his career die. And he did so because of a bad agent's advice, whatever. And nothing happened because they're the Jets, and they don't have a supporting cast because they're the Jets, and they don't make people better as a coaching staff because they're the Jets. And generally speaking, you have one reason as a top-type football player to go to East Rutherford, New Jersey, And that is because they are offering the most money. Chris, I can't see a scenario here in which that's not what this was about, at least not in the moment.
No, and again, I don't have a definitive number that I can give, but the terms that I kept hearing while I was at the combine for what the Steelers were considering offering, or maybe they actually offered it, I don't know, was 2 years for $30 million with $20 million guaranteed. Now that's, $10 million less both overall and in guaranteed money, so it is a lesser offer if that is in fact what the Steelers offered. I do have a hard time thinking the Steelers were going to be willing to pay Justin Fields $20 million. And while I think they did think very highly of him and obviously prioritized him throughout this process, it's still a 6-game sample size that they're riding on here. And I have a hard time thinking that they'd be willing to go, and obviously weren't willing to go to $20 million a year to pay a quarterback that you're pretty much running off of a 6-game sample size.
Yeah, 6 games, but also he's under your roof.
I agree.
You learn about it. Yeah, I mean, respectfully, to me, it goes beyond 6 starts. It's how he responded to everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's another way of seeing this, and I'm going to keep qualifying this because we don't have all the details yet.
Yep.
As to why things happen the way they did from the Steelers' perspective. But if you have a threshold, Chris,
mm-hmm.
of 2, let's just say, based on what you're saying there, okay? If you have a threshold of 2 years and 30 with 20 guaranteed, and you say that's it, we're not crossing that, we're not going over that, then there's a limited amount in which somebody of importance in your organization believes in that player. You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's, in other words, if they view him, and by the way, the Jets do as well, because the Jets didn't exactly go breaking the bank for him, not in quarterback money. Okay.
Right.
The Jets didn't say, here's Kirk Cousins money. No, really. They didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
So if that's your threshold, then somebody, maybe somebody whose name rhymes with, I don't know, Mike Tomlin, doesn't feel strongly enough about the player to be able to say, let's really, really commit. Let's really, really make him the one. Let's even throw on a 3rd year or whatever. Okay, let's put it past a prove it deal. That to me is the part that's tough to get past, because listen, we don't have to wonder whether or not Tomlin had reservations about Fields. We watched it.
Yep.
We watched it.
Mm-hmm.
He was watching Russell Wilson fall apart in front of him and still wouldn't go back.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty much the answer that we're going to get however it comes down the road, whether it comes whenever Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan and Art Rooney II all speak at the owners' meetings in a few weeks, or if it comes out, later on, whenever it comes out. That's pretty much the answer I think we're going to get, is that they had like you said, they had a threshold that they weren't willing to go past. They were like, we really like Justin. We want to bring him back, but we don't want to get desperate. We don't want to feel like we have to overpay in order to keep him, because ultimately, I think if they were convinced that he was for sure going to be more than just a bridge quarterback, then they would have been willing to offer him just about anything that whatever was needed to get him to stay. And apparently that wasn't the case. Apparently they thought it might have been too big of a risk. Otherwise, they would have been willing to pay that.
That's what I'm saying. If you go and you pay the money that you just did, you commit
mm-hmm.
That kind of cap space and everything else to Metcalf, and then the very next day you lose the guy who would have been thrown to him, then either there was some sort of agreement between Mulugeta and the Jets that, and obviously Justin himself, mm-hmm. that, we're not going to be going back and forth here. We make you an offer. This is it. Okay. Don't be messing with us here. Don't be using us as, what's the word I'm looking for here, where you drive up the price?
Leverage. Yeah.
Leverage. Yeah. You can tell I'm still that you can't do that. You can't do that. And then of course they listen to them, and then that gets done. But the real question right now, and as you can see a version of it here from Christina Larson, well, she says, what are they doing? Let's take that further. What are they going to do? Because all this stuff we've been saying for months here was also accurate, which is that the field of quarterbacks, the field of available quarterbacks, meaning open market guys. I understand trades are always a possibility, but people aren't trading a quarterback that they've already committed to having as their QB1. I mean, nobody does that.
Yep.
Okay, you don't just talk them out of it. No. Just send them to us, like the nonsense Trevor Lawrence thing. Remember?
Right.
But nobody does that. Okay. Yeah. So what do you do here? Is it Sam Darnold or bust now? Is it Russell Wilson?
Well, they can't be Sam.
Talk about what's that?
It can't be Sam Darnold because he's going to the Seahawks. So
I actually didn't even know this yet. Okay.
Yeah. So Sam Darnold is not an option. He signed or he agreed to a 3-year deal worth a little bit more than $100 million. So yeah, he's and you want to talk about paying like that's a contract right there. So I don't think the Steelers are gonna be willing to pay that. I never thought that they might have been willing to make an offer to Sam Darnold, but probably not anything that was going to be in that ballpark. So he's not an option. So right now you're looking at, in my opinion, the 3 best options out there. And I'm using the word best relative to the rest of the field are Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, or Daniel Jones. Those are pretty much your best 3 options right now. And I don't want to hear about drafting a quarterback either, because unless you're trading up to get Cam Ward, none of those guys are going to be are ready enough to be a week 1 starter. Yeah.
How high do you have to go? I mean, where is he? Where's he going to get taken?
I mean, you're talking at minimum top 5, if not top 3. There most likely will be a team that's willing to take a guy like Cam Ward.
They're just going to get Russ. They're just going to sign Russ.
It wouldn't surprise me if it's Aaron Rodgers, to be completely honest. It would not surprise me.
Why? What does that do? I don't even get that. Like, did you not watch what he did?
I know. How
can you live off the name? I'm more into the idea of the Ben comeback, honestly.
Yeah,
are they the same age?
He apparently offered. I mean, he might have offered more tongue in cheek, but I don't know what his answer would be if Omar Khan actually picked up the phone and was like, "Ben, what do you think about coming out of retirement to play?" The Aaron Rodgers thing, like, obviously, when you look at the drama that comes along with it, I mean, he's had multiple head coaches fired over the last few years. But he also threw 28 touchdown passes last year. He threw for almost 4,000 yards on a bad football team. He can still sling it. He can't move the way he used to. That's for sure. And it goes both. So
Russell Wilson about mobile quarterbacks exactly. And where you want the younger guy. It's just stuff. We're not talking about stuff that's down the ladder here in the Steelers hierarchy here. This is stuff that came right from Art Rooney's mouth.
Yep.
They wanted to go mobile. They wanted to have a room full of those guys. They wanted to go with a younger guy. He didn't even hedge on any of this. Yep. And poof, it's all gone like that. Like, see, Teresa, I love you. You know how I feel about your participation here and everything. So respectfully, your line here that you don't pay a guy like Fields $30 million guaranteed based on 6 games. You pay whatever the market rate is. It's not a matter of being right or wrong in terms of your judgment or your value. You got to get it done. And if you don't get it done, and this is where we're really going to find out about what the Steelers are thinking or to what extent they put all their eggs in one basket, is, what was the plan B? And it had to be in the past tense. It's not like you're sitting around there today going, all right, now what do we do? You had to have been prepared for every possibility here. And by the way, knowing Omar, he absolutely positively was. I don't see this as being Rodgers. How old is he anyway?
He's 41 and he'll be 42 in December.
Okay, so how old's Ben? 43?
I'm not even sure how old he is. I think he was 38 when he retired. So
That sounds about right.
About the same age. I mean, Rogers came into the league the year after Ben did. He just didn't start right away because Brett Favre was still there. So
that's
he was drafted.
How they
was
met
in
the Super Bowl.
Class. Yeah.
So B. Phil reminds everybody that if you want a membership, and I'm sure everybody's in a rollicking mood today for that, dkps.net/join. Here, I can feel the tidal wave of memberships to a show about the Steelers. Trina is still she's been in the Russ court for a while now, just says, are you crazy? Russ has done a lot more in the fields. Of course he has. That's actually, Russ has been around for a long time. But listen, I want to make this part really clear. And remember that what my reporting was from 3 weeks ago was that the Steelers had a lot of people and important people in that building who didn't want him back. Okay? Nothing that happened today alters that.
Yeah.
The Steelers also had a lot of people in that building who really, really, really wanted to work with Fields and to keep him. Nothing about today changes any of that.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't happen. So either somebody in that building has a lot more of a voice than everyone else. Might or might not be the head coach. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the thing that kind of stands out to me when we talk about Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson is obviously both are veteran quarterbacks. Both have been in the league well long enough that where they've seen it all. They've seen any kind of nothing that any defense is going to show them is going to completely confuse them the way it would a younger quarterback, even a guy like Justin Fields who's been in the league for 4 years. But the difference between Rodgers and Russ, there are two differences. Number one, the really important fact is that there are a lot of people in the organization who don't want him back, which is why they would talk to Aaron Rodgers instead of wanting to just, all right, well, we didn't get Justin, so let's just bring Russ back because at least he was here.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that were the case, I think he'd already be re-signed by now. And I think you'd also see Russell Wilson get really ecstatic the way he does about everything else in life whenever the Steelers acquired DK Metcalf last night, and he was dead silent on Instagram about it. So the second thing is about Rodgers is that he can also make throws that Russ can't from the pocket. He gets rid of the ball fast. He was the third fastest in terms of getting rid of the ball among quarterbacks who started at least 12 games last year. So he can do things that I think Arthur Smith can work with. The question is, will the egos get in the way? And that's the gigantic risk when you're talking about Aaron Rodgers, because we've seen his ego get in the way both in Green Bay and in New York.
We have, but we also have seen that any quarterback of that age, that experience level, and by the way, that accomplishment level, is going to come in to your team, to your offensive system, and make it his, not the other way around.
Yep. You're
not about to indoctrinate a Rodgers any more, by the way, than you would have indoctrinated a Darnold if he had been here. You're just not. Those guys, they've been in the league too long, and you're not going to say, here's a whole new thing for you. And by the way, we really need you to scramble out there out of the pocket and make things happen. That'd be no different if Ben were coming back. This is only the third time I've brought up Ben. Ben, do this, man. There's a part of me that really has a hard time in general because, like here, Mo Miller says, the thought of Aaron Rodgers being our quarterback makes me sick. I don't know what motivates Mo to say that, but here's mine. I think of the Jets when I think of sorry-ass teams that do stuff like this. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, I see the Jets and the Giants is going out and getting these hopeless old guys to fill in for a year, and the quarterback gets criminally overhyped given where they are at their age and their career stage, and everybody's – I mean, you remember all the news for the past 2 years has just been Aaron Rodgers this, Aaron Rodgers this. He went down, was it in week one, like on the first series a couple years ago?
Yeah, I think he had like one pass attempt or something like that.
Right. And he goes really down. Early. He's done for the year. He's done for the year. Never stopped making headlines.
Mm-hmm.
Never stopped. Why? Because they at least play close to New York. And they use the New York name. So they're part of that media market and whatever else. And it's just Jim says, God, no, not a repeat of the Kenny Pickett debacle. What's this have to do with Kenny? I mean, a repeat of the Kenny Pickett debacle would be forcing a draft pick, right, Chris?
Yeah, that would be reaching for Jackson Dart at 21st overall, which you should.
Which some people will push.
I know they will, and they have, and I'm telling you that's a mistake. I'm not saying that Jackson Dart isn't worth drafting, but not 21st overall. Just not, especially when you don't have a second round pick now. Sorry. I don't think that's something that the Steelers are actually entertaining unless there is something about Jackson Dart that they got from their formal meeting with him at the combine where they're just like, you know what, this guy's a franchise quarterback.
John says, so DK, Rodgers, Wilson, or Daniel Jones, if it was up to you to take one of the three, knowing everything that you know, not in a vacuum, knowing who you know at the Steelers, knowing how they feel, which of the three do you take, Chris?
Honestly, Daniel Jones. I that's not a name that's going to excite a lot of people. And if we do get the headline later that the Steelers are signing Daniel Jones to a 1-year contract or 2-year contract, whatever it is,
there won't be a parade.
There will not be a parade. There will be a lot of people who are like, well, I guess we're tanking for Archie Manning or Drew Aller in 2026. But Daniel Jones, you know, I floated this out there when Matt Williamson and I did the Southside beat last week. And the more and more I've thought about it, I actually think it's kind of interesting. I kind of view him as a potential Ryan Tannehill candidate. You know,
I thought you were going to say Darnold for sure, but okay, especially since they came from the same market. But yeah,
the Ryan Tannehill roadmap from being a first round bust, having several years where he was okay or not good, to getting put with the offensive coordinator who can utilize his skill set, where he's got weapons to throw to like George Pickens and DK Metcalf and Pat Freiermuth. Oh, and they just tendered Jalen Warren. They're going to draft another running back, and the offensive line's in development, and he's mobile. Like, and by the way, when Ryan Tannehill took off, who was his offensive coordinator?
Oh yeah, exactly.
And Arthur Smith. So he's also been down this road before too. So that at least piques my interest the same way that them keeping Justin Fields piqued my interest. But I also don't know what the Steelers are possibly thinking about Daniel Jones. They just might be like, no, sorry, we're just not thinking about that. We're just going to go with the old guy for another year, and we're going to see what we can get in the draft. We're getting the draft next year.
It's crazy. It's a big planet, and every once in a while, it's worth bringing up stuff like this where you just go, it's a really, really big planet, like 7 billion people on it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And in the United States of America alone, but this also applies to Canada as well, everybody plays football. There's at the high school level, there are so many quarterbacks in this world. And yet we can see this argument getting to the point where you can't find a starting quarterback who is under 40 years old to play for your team to fill out a 32-team league. Yep. And this is a subject for another day on this show, Chris, but I feel really strongly about this. This is the result of the NFL not having a minor league system. This is the result of the NFL just doing this and being cheapskates and letting NCAA and the colleges function as their feeder system. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because they don't have anywhere to play. I had a good conversation about this with Mason Rudolph before he left. Mm-hmm. They don't have a place to go. Mason didn't have a place to go. He didn't have a place to get better, so he did it on his own. He studied on his own. He practiced on his own. He did throwing sessions on his own, worked with wide receivers on his own just to try to keep getting better as a quarterback. Was he stunted by it? Of course he was. Of course he was. There's nothing you can do. You're not even playing football as a backup. And then what ends up happening, this happens when the quality of the overall product of the National Football League goes down. How often do you get to the, Sunday afternoon and the game of the week is, I don't know, some big billing and it's Gardner Minshew against whoever. And you're like, why am I watching this crap? Yeah. This is why, because they don't have a way to have other quarterbacks get better. I just had to throw that out.
I think that's why you're seeing more teams try to run the ball more effectively. And not only that, but also the league has shifted because of the dominant quarterback play that we did see for a long time, where it seemed like every team had a quarterback of some kind. Even the teams that were near the bottom still usually had a guy who could somewhat get something done. And obviously the teams at the top, I mean, shoot, Steelers had Ben Roethlisberger for a long time. They had an explosive offense and didn't win a Super Bowl throughout the 2010s. Despite having one of the best offenses in the league and one of the most talent-rich offenses in the league. Why? Because, well, one of the reasons was Tom Brady was there. Oh, and then Patrick Mahomes came along, and there's been a lot of quarterback talent. And I think you're seeing teams try to find other ways to combat that. Really quick news, by the way. It's not anything gigantic, but Dante Jackson won't be returning. He's apparently, according to ESPN, going to the Chargers on a 2-year, $13 million contract.
Now, good for him. At the same time, more than anything, what I wish for Dante, and I know you're thinking the same thing, Chris, is that he can overcome the back issues. Those are not a football thing for him. They're a life thing for him. And that's a tough thing to fight through. I'm not sure what he would have done to convince the management out at SoFi that, he's going to be able to pull that off and take all the snaps that he needs to, but he's not going to. Okay. Yeah. He's just not going to. I'm not saying that because I want to see the guy fail when he leaves. I think he was terrific. Aiden and a lot of other people are pointing out that Daniel Jones, really reasonable pickup. Daniel, listen to what we're talking about here. The one thing Jones would give you is he is mobile.
He is mobile. He can run.
He can really, really run.
He just the one thing with Daniel Jones that I can never get out of my head is that one play where he was home free. He was running down the field, nobody around him, and he just fell down. That play's never going to get out of my head.
Kenny sacked himself last year in Philly,
that's true.
It happens. Donnan points out Justin Fields' career just got worse. It did. Who's he have out there? What would they have promised him?
He gets reunited with Garrett Wilson, and that's
It's just you can't operate on your own sense of market value.
Yeah.
You just can't do it. You can't pretend that you're functioning in isolation. You're not. You're in a 32-team league, and when it goes to the open market, I've been saying this for weeks, all it takes is one. Even if the Jets are totally wrong, even if they're out of whack and whatever, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter because the Jets paid the price. The Jets got their guy. Jeff Stoney is saying, sign Aaron Rodgers to a 2-year contract. Oh, so you want him when he's 42. A second string backup and then draft a quarterback or wait till next year for a quarterback. But this is the problem here, though, isn't it, Chris? You never turn the page to the post Ben era. You just never get to that guy.
Well, they needed to turn the page to the post-Ben era before Ben retired, but that didn't happen. So we can play the shoulda, woulda, coulda game all day long, but that's just that they kind of made their own bed whenever they didn't. The moment Ben's arm went, they should have started trying to address quarterback. And I'm not talking about just laying the red carpet out for Mason Rudolph. I'm talking about possibly drafting Jalen Hurts in 2020 or getting a quarterback in another pretty solid quarterback class in 2021. Not reaching for Kenny Pickett in 2022 after Ben had already retired. But that's neither here nor there at this point. They didn't do that. And so now you're kind of stuck in this quarterback purgatory because this quarterback class isn't great. Next year's is probably going to be better. You got names like Archie Manning and Drew Aller, but I've heard things about Drew Aller that if he doesn't get them fixed, he's never going to realize his potential, which I've heard the name Josh Allen when you talk about his potential, but he'll never reach that potential.
Drew Aller? You heard Josh Allen?
In terms of potential,
I think a lot of that is just being at Penn State. And go ahead.
You're talking about like arm talent. You're talking about everything that he's capable of.
God, all I hear is Penn State people complaining about him.
Well, it's because the one big thing I keep hearing from scouts is that his upper body and his lower body are completely disconnected, and that's never a good thing for a quarterback ever. Yeah,
the stand says, why even try getting Metcalf at this point? This is nuts. I don't know. Good luck, guys. I think I'm fading away from football. Other ways to spend my time and money. Yeah, I don't buy you on that one, Stan, because all I heard yesterday was, I'm back. We're back. Everything is so awesome. And, it's not. And a lot of people did say, and I mentioned this myself on the morning show, that the thing was going to be, the whole process was going to be incomplete, obviously, unless they went and they got the quarterback done. And they knew which quarterback they wanted. They didn't get him. I'm sure they can spin that 1,000 different ways, and maybe they'll try after the fact. But, some of us also had ears before this, and know what it was that they were saying, what it was that they were telling us. And it was very, very real. Mason's not coming back, guys. You're getting all sappy and goofy here now.
Yeah, I don't think.
But is there, in fairness though, is there someone like that where you can look at somebody, the field of actual backups, Chris, and say, is there a guy that we can get? Like what about in Atlanta?
Kirk Cousins, you're talking about, well, first off, the Falcons have to actually decide to move on from him. You would think they would, because they're making they're committed now to Michael Penix Jr.
Penix, yeah. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, but you haven't, the Falcons haven't given any indication, as far as I can see, or from what I've read or heard elsewhere, that they're definitely going to move on from Kirk Cousins, that they're
maybe they can be coerced to do that.
Maybe. Maybe they can. But
that's the kind of situation I'm looking for, where you find somebody who's sitting there in a B slot that maybe should be in a B slot. Well,
and when you're talking about,
I don't want Kirk Cousins either, though. I just want to be clear here.
Well, when Kirk Cousins was playing at his best in Minnesota, and when he, by the way, had weapons, which he will have. Whoever the quarterback's going to be is going to have weapons.
That's your selling point. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you have DK Metcalf and George Pickens as your top two receivers, and by the way, you could still add another one possibly in the draft, you're going to have weapons. That's just, no matter who it is. And so Kirk Cousins put up, I've always said, and I was saying this last year, Kirk Cousins is one of the more underrated quarterbacks over the last decade. When you look at the actual numbers he's put up.
I know. You gave me this lecture in Atlanta when we went last year. I heard this. And I'm sitting there like dumping on Kirk Cousins. And you're like, no, man, I'm Kirk Cousins' agent.
Look at his numbers. Look at it. Now, he was not good last year. And you can't get that out of your mind now. You can't just say, oh, well, he could definitely find a way, the form that he had in Minnesota after he put on tape what he did last year in Atlanta. You just can't forget that now. Now, you could say it was just because of an injury. Maybe he needs better targets, whatever it is. I don't know. He also had an offense that had Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts, and I don't know. I'm not fully on the Kirk Cousins train right now, but shoot, at this point, I don't think the Steelers can afford to not leave a stone unturned. I think they need to turn everything over that they can now.
No, we're going to see how this goes over the next. Wow, it's all going to happen real fast now. It just has to, Chris. I don't think this is going to be one of those things you see drag out. There's only, as I was just saying, so many quarterbacks in existence. And you've got to be able to find ones who've been in the league, who've had some sort of QB1 pedigree, even if it isn't experience, at least pedigree, or figure out something as it relates to the draft, But like you're saying, when you're talking about Cam Ward and you're talking about moving way up, what are you giving up? All of your picks?
A lot. Yeah. You're giving up a lot, and you don't have a second rounder right now. You could recoup and possibly get back into the second round, but you're talking about the best way to do that is either to trade George Pickens or to trade back in the first round, not to trade up in the first round if you want to get back into the second round. But right now you're running out of capital in order to move up. I don't think the Steelers are considering trading up that much to get Cam Ward, unless they think he's a surefire Hall of Famer, which as much as I think he's the best quarterback in this draft, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like, yeah, I'm going to trade up 15 something spots or whatever to get Cam Ward. But it's a really bad, I was saying this at the beginning, it's a really bad offseason for the Steelers to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback, because there just aren't many good options out there. Even if they would have re-signed Justin Fields, it's not like they're if they got their franchise guy.
Justin would not have been cementing your position. It would have just been cementing who you're going to stick with over the next year or two. Trying him. Justin Watson says The constant turnover is so frustrating. I'm sure Justin's referring to the quarterback position, but the turnover should have begun, as Chris was just intimating a few moments ago, while Ben was still here. Okay, that should have been 2017, 2018, that you should have had somebody in waiting, somebody doing their Jordan Love time, or once upon a time, their Aaron Rodgers time, back when he was behind Brett Favre in Green Bay. Richard says that DK should watch Shoe's tape. Is that how you pronounce that? Shoe? Shock. Yeah. Shock's tape. Anybody who doesn't know who Shock is the old guy in the draft. He's like the Brandon Whedon, only he's 25. He is seen as a plug-and-play draft pick. He's somebody who can come in and play right away, if only because of his age. I'm immensely skeptical about this because he was in college for 700 years, and he didn't necessarily make a name for himself in the first 699 years that he was there. But I'm listening on everything, Chris. Right now, I think if you're the Steelers, you're listening on absolutely everything, including Shock.
You have to. I mean, and that's
Didn't they visit with him? Didn't they visit with him?
Well, I don't think at the combine.
Had a meeting,
right? But they definitely met with him at the Senior Bowl. But teams also meet with every single player at the Senior Bowl, which is one of the things that the Steelers did not do when they were at the combine. Like they didn't double dip with a lot of the players that they met at the Senior Bowl. They're like, okay, we've already met with them. We want to meet the guys we haven't met with yet. And so that's whenever they met with Jackson Dart and Quinn Ewers and some of the other and Will Howard from Ohio State, some of these other quarterbacks that weren't at the Senior Bowl. So, but yeah, they met with him, in Mobile, and and he was also a pre-draft visit already too. So he's been to the South Side. They've had that meeting with him. So.
Josh Dobbs is coming up here a lot too. And I mean, listen, it doesn't always have to be a familiar name. I think a lot of cases right here, right now, that's what everybody is just yelling out, Go ahead and get somebody. What you have to do now, to some extent, I think, if we're being realistic here, is you've got to throw a lot of different things against the wall. If you're Omar, you got to throw an old guy against the wall. Mm-hmm. You got to throw a viable 1A type that you acquire from another team against the wall as your backup. And on top of that, you got to get yourself a young guy in the draft. I think you got to do all three, at least in an attempt to say, hey, look, we get it. Okay, Rodgers is really old. He's not going to be here for very long. He's also, realistically, he's going to get hurt. He's going to get hurt a lot. So we got to have a 1A. So we're going to get this guy. And then we need to have a future. We need to have somebody finally sitting there in the wings learning stuff. It can't be, just your standard run-of-the-mill Chris Oladokun 3 or 4, right? Does that seem like at least a plausible path out of this? Wow. What a bummer.
It's something,
such a bummer.
It is, but I think, again, yes, if they would have re-signed Justin Fields, it probably would have been the best situation, but it still wouldn't have been the ideal situation because either way, they don't have the quarterback that they need in order to compete. So now that they're not getting Justin Fields, they're still not probably going to compete. The chances of a team competing without a quarterback in any era, but especially this era, is so, like, unless you have an all-time great defense, it's almost impossible to do so. So what do you do at quarterback? Yes, you can take a chance. I'm absolutely saying you should take a chance on a quarterback. I'm just saying you have to do it in the right round. Don't reach in the first round when you can get a really good defensive tackle or get a really good wide receiver or something that can actually make the team better down the road when you do get that quarterback. Because reaching for a quarterback, learn from 3 years ago. Don't reach for a quarterback in the first round. Third round, fourth round, if Quinn Ewers is there, if Tyler Shock's there, then absolutely do it. Take a chance. Let's see if something, Will Howard's there, take a chance. See if something, if it materializes. If it doesn't, then okay, you didn't waste a premium draft pick on it. You're not then regretting yet another first round pick that didn't pan out, which the Steelers have had way too many of those. When you look at what the Steelers did from 2000 to 2012 in the first round, they didn't miss. And now recently it's been more, what have they hit on? TJ Watt, they traded their first rounder in 2020 for Minka. Anything else? Like, what did they actually hit on? it's harder to find that. You can't just waste these draft picks anymore.
And what you can't do is you can't keep backing yourself into your own self-made corners when it comes to the quarterback position. I think more than anything, whatever happens here, whatever results from this, and I don't mean to make this sound like some sort of tragedy, by the way. I'm seeing some stuff here. DK, you build up Justin Fields too much. No, it's situational. It's the circumstances. It's what's around the Steelers. Okay. In a vacuum, everybody's just available. I'm going to go get Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. We're going to call it a day. That's not what this is. Okay. And no, Mike Lewis, I don't want Zach Wilson. Just take that one back. I don't want Mac Jones either, and I don't want Malik Willis. I don't even know what a Joe Milton is. What's a Joe Milton?
Okay, I'm actually not. I would be intrigued by Malik Willis, to be completely honest. He looked really, really interesing.
He did have a little bit of a surge there in the 2024 season. I still don't want him. But he's that guy. He could be that 1A or something. That's what I'm talking about. So you get yourself your obligatory old guy, if that's Rodgers or whatever. What are Rodgers' other options anyway?
The Giants is probably the other main option for him. Which, I mean, you're staying in New York.
Great way to get killed. Yeah.
It's like you're still going to be playing even in the same stadium. You're just going to be trading out a green jersey for a blue one. From everything that's been out there, Rodgers' other main option right now is probably the Giants. I'm really intrigued though that Daniel Jones hasn't really, number one, that he hasn't already been re-signed by Minnesota, because just like Sam Darnold to Seattle was kind of like this foregone conclusion that was already kind of predetermined before free agency even started at noon today. It was kind of already kind of preconceived that Daniel Jones is going to re-sign with Minnesota to compete with JJ McCarthy, and that still hasn't happened yet. So I'm a little intrigued with the fact that that's been really quiet.
Yeah. Well, anyway, when we come back here, we're going to take care of a little bit of business here, and Chris, you can hang around with us too here. We're blowing up the format today here. Everybody's really mad. And the worst thing about it is, Chris, is that it's the balloon popped effect. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's so much worse in context that they first got DK Metcalf. Okay. That they first got themselves the jockey and there's no horse to ride on. Or I don't know if it's the other way around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've obviously been going through the comments here on the show, and I saw one, and it's way too far back to even find it, but I saw one where it's just like I'm beginning to think that Omar Khan is like I'm starting to like give up on Omar Khan and everything like that, which is hilarious because less than 4 hours ago, everybody was praising Omar for landing DK Metcalf for a second round pick. Another kind of target the Steelers were interested in that is no longer going to happen. The Packers are signing cornerback Nate Hobbs, and I know the Steelers were interested in him from what I learned at the Combine as a potential slot corner, and he's apparently going to the Packers on a 4-year, $48 million contract. So that would have been an expensive slot corner, but
yeah, and now here we are. We're still talking about the Steelers' cap space and what they have and don't have. I can tell you this unequivocally: you're not going to see the Steelers making other moves for as long as they don't have cost certainty at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Okay. Think about that. They don't have, especially after signing Metcalf following the trade, they're not going to have any. They don't have a free dollar theoretically. They have to be able to free up the money that they have, the space that they have to sign the quarterback, after which maybe they can get something done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that they've got, well, they did release Larry Ogunjobi today. I found that out, and then the Steelers made it official after we went on the air. So that frees up $7 million. So they have cap space. They still have plenty of cap space. But to your point, they can't really do anything with it until they figure out what they're doing at quarterback. They need to know how much they're going to be paying a quarterback, and then they can figure out how they're going to best allocate the rest of that cap space. There's a lot of talk out there about Darius Slay being signed. He's still under contract with the Eagles, so that can't happen until the Eagles release him. So that may end up happening, but either way, they can't really figure out what they're doing with all that cap space until, like you said, they get a quarterback.
The final word for the day is going to go to Grayson Brown, who says, with the Wolf and Fields news, for anybody who missed either of these, Justin Fields obviously has agreed to terms with the New Jersey Jets for 2 years, $40 million. That's 30 guaranteed. And Craig Wolfley, a friend of ours, a friend to a lot of people, a friend.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Yeah, sorry about that. That obviously was not our intention here. This thing does a lot of things on its own.
I think we reached some kind of capacity because I got a message that said full capacity.
Full capacity of what?
I don't know, or maybe that was just when I hovered.
No idea. Live video perils. Just to close out here, Grayson Brown says, with the Wolf losing Craig Wolfley today, I know, Grayson, you're not equating the two. One is a much more serious matter than the other. Today sucks. It feels like a travesty leaving on the Steelers for the Jets. It's a head scratcher. Feels like 2022 all over again, and now the Steelers have to draft a quarterback. I think they were going to do that anyway, but it's deflating, and it's got to change here. And I think like within 24 hours, Chris, I really do.
Yeah, I agree, and just wanted to say my own thing about Craig Wolfley. Interacted with him quite a bit, obviously being around the team as often as I am, and then obviously being at every game. Everything that you hear on the air or have heard him whenever he's
real.
It's real. It's the most authentic that I can think of anybody, and it really sucks. Yeah, there's just no other way to. I don't have any fancy words to put together. It really sucks.
I will say this, having known him and Tunchilkin as closely as I did, and how inseparable those two were, always, both in their football lives, in their personal lives, in their faith, in their shared faith, and their commitments in that regard. I will say this, they're together.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we're going to be hearing an awful lot of that specific sentiment here in the days to come. They're together, and it never felt right seeing one without the other.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, we're gonna call this one a show here, and let's see how it goes with the quarterback thing. All right, take care.